I never thought this day would come. It was just a routine checkup, something I'd been putting off for months, not out of fear, but because there was always something else to do. My name is Lena Thomas, 55 years old, and I had always prided myself on being strong. I've been a mother, a daughter, a sister, and a friend, always the one people could count on. But when I walked into Dr. Jenkins' office that afternoon, I had no idea how much everything was about to change. I sat down across from him, the sound of the fluorescent lights buzzing in the background, a soft hum that only seemed to make everything feel heavier. The room smelled of antiseptic, but my mind couldn't focus on anything other than the look on his face. Dr. Jenkins wasn't the type to beat around the bush. His eyes locked with mine, and there it was, a pity I had never seen in them before. "Lena," he said softly, his voice thick with something I couldn't name. "We've received the results from your biopsy." I had been feeling exhausted for weeks, bone-deep fatigue that didn't make sense, some stomach cramps too, nothing that seemed urgent, just signs of aging. But then the weight in my chest began to grow as he continued. "It's cancer, advanced, stage 4. The prognosis," he paused, looking down at his papers as if searching for the right words. "There's not much we can do at this point." I sat there frozen, cancer. The word echoed in my ears, but it didn't seem to make sense. It didn't feel real. I wanted to scream, to shout, to beg him to take it back, but instead I just nodded. What else could I do? I wasn't prepared for this, not in any way. I had a life to live, a family that needed me. But now I was facing something I couldn't control, a battle I might not win. "Dr. Jenkins is there," my voice cracked, and I had to swallow hard before I could say anything. "What can I do? Is there anything? I don't want to just give up." He looked at me, his face a mixture of sympathy and helplessness. "We can start palliative care, but at this stage, Lena, it's about comfort, not a cure." I could hear the finality in his voice, but my mind couldn't accept it. I wasn't going to die just yet, not like this. I had so much left to do. Later that afternoon, I sat in my car in the parking lot, staring out through the windshield at the empty street. The world seemed so far away. I had to call my kids. I had to tell them. But as I pulled out my phone, a wave of dread swept over me. I'd always been the rock for them, the one they could count on. But now, what would they say? Ashley, my oldest, had always been the headstrong one. She had a demanding job at a law firm in downtown San Diego, and I knew her life wasn't easy, but she always made time for me. Then there was Kyle, my only son, a laid-back guy who worked in marketing. He had a good heart, but he wasn't always emotionally available. And Samantha, my baby, she was 27, and though we were close, I could tell she had grown distant lately. Maybe it was just me being paranoid, but something felt off between us. The call to Ashley was the hardest. "Mom," her voice was sharp with concern, but there was a subtle edge, something I hadn't noticed before. "What's wrong? You sound off." "I need to tell you something, sweetheart," I said, my voice trembling. "I have cancer, stage 4. The doctors don't think there's much they can do." There was a silence on the other end, a long, painful silence that seemed to stretch out forever. "Mom, what?" she finally managed. "What are you talking about, cancer?" I could hear her shuffling around, maybe standing up from her desk. The shock in her voice was unmistakable. "I'm so sorry," I said, my heart sinking. "I didn't know how to tell you. I don't know what to do." "Well, what does this mean for everything?" Ashley's voice was cold now, distant. "Are you going to need help?" I felt my stomach churn. "Of course I'll need help. I'm scared, Ashley." Another silence, but this one was different. It was the sound of someone pulling away. "I don't know, Mom. I have a lot going on at work, and I can't do this right now." Her words hit me like a slap across the face. "What are you saying?" I whispered. "Ashley, I need you." I'm sorry, Mom, but I can't. Maybe Kyle can help." And then, before I could even respond, the call ended. I stared at the phone in disbelief. She hung up on me. I thought about calling back, but something in me stopped. I couldn't bear hearing her voice again, not like that. The next day, I made the call to Kyle. I tried to hold my voice steady, tried to sound like I was okay, but the tremor in my voice betrayed me. "Kyle, it's Mom. I need you. I'm really sick." There was a long pause. I could hear him sigh on the other end. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said, and there it was again, that coldness, that distance. "But I've got a lot going on and I don't know what to tell you. I'm not sure I can help." I felt the floor drop out from under me. My son, my only son, was turning his back on me too. Just let me know what I can do from afar, okay?" My heart shattered. I hung up the phone, sitting there in silence, listening to the echo of my own heartbeat. No one cared. Not really. Not the way I needed them to. I felt the weight of the truth sink in. My children were gone, and with them, the last vestiges of hope I had for any kind of comfort in my final days. They didn't want to deal with me. It was too much of a burden for them. But here's the thing. They didn't expect me to fight back. They didn't expect me to survive this. And that's exactly what I was going to do. The next few weeks were a blur. I moved into a small apartment that Greg, an old friend from New York, had offered me. I hadn't seen him in years, but something about his voice on the phone had reassured me. Maybe it was the idea of having someone who actually cared, someone who could offer me support in a way my children couldn't. Greg lived in Los Angeles, just far enough to give me some space but close enough to visit when I needed to. He had his own life, his own family, but he'd never stopped caring about me. It was a strange feeling to be cared for by someone who wasn't family, someone who didn't owe me anything. But as I settled into the apartment, something began to shift inside me. The anger, the sadness, it started to boil over. I couldn't just let my children get away with this. They had treated me like I was disposable. They had abandoned me at my lowest point, and now I was going to make them pay for it. The more I thought about it, the more it became clear. I wasn't going to go down without a fight. But first, I had to make sure I had the strength to see it through. I had to get my health under control. I had to make sure that when the time came, I would be ready. But there was no more room for hope, only revenge. What I was about to do would shake my children to their core, and it wasn't just about making them regret their actions. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my power, and showing them that they would never treat me like this again. But how far would I go to make them realize their mistakes? Stay tuned. I couldn't believe what had just happened. The moment I hung up the phone with Ashley, I felt the weight of betrayal settle deep into my bones. I thought I'd seen it all. The struggles of raising 3 kids on my own, the long nights of worrying about their futures. But this was something I could never have prepared for. It wasn't just that my daughter had refused to help me in my time of need. It was how quickly she'd turned on me. The anger inside me was slow to rise, but when it did, it consumed me. I sat there in that empty room, staring at the walls of my new apartment in Los Angeles, the place Greg had graciously offered me. Greg. I hadn't seen him in over a decade, but his voice on the other end of the phone had been warm and comforting. He was always that way, kind, dependable. The opposite of my children now. I spent the next few days drifting in and out of my thoughts, still trying to wrap my head around everything. Kyle, too, had distanced himself. It felt as though my entire world was crumbling around me, but I had nowhere to turn. Greg offered to help, but I couldn't burden him. He had his own life, his own responsibilities. It was up to me now to navigate this storm. My health was declining rapidly. Every day I woke up with more pain, more exhaustion. The cancer was spreading. I could feel it. But what hurt the most wasn't the physical pain, it was the emotional toll. My children, the people I had given my heart and soul to, had turned their backs on me. I couldn't fathom how they could do this, how they could abandon their own mother when she needed them most. I tried to keep myself busy, focusing on small tasks around the apartment, trying to pretend that everything was normal. But every time I picked up the phone, I saw the missed calls from Ashley, and every time I heard the voicemail from Kyle, it tore at me a little more. They were just avoiding me. It wasn't just their refusal to help. It was their tone, their indifference. They didn't care anymore, not about me, not about anything. I had been the glue that held this family together, but now I was nothing, just a burden, something to be discarded. I wasn't stupid. I knew my children's lives weren't perfect. Ashley had been working nonstop at her law firm, and Kyle had his own problems. But that didn't excuse what they had done. They had a responsibility. and they had thrown it all away without a second thought. A week passed. I found myself standing in front of the mirror one evening, looking at the reflection of a woman who had been broken. I had never felt so alone in my life. Sure, I had Greg, but that wasn't the same. Greg had his own life. What about me? My life had been about them, about my children, my family, but now I had no one. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but deep down I felt something stirring, a spark of something I hadn't felt in years, anger, determination. I wasn't going to let them get away with this. I didn't care if I was sick. I didn't care if I didn't have much time left. I was going to make them see me, really see me, before it was too late. A few days later, I reached out to Karen, one of my oldest friends. She lived in Riverside, about an hour away, but she was always there when I needed her. I had known Karen since we were kids. She knew the pain of losing family, and I knew I could trust her. When she answered the phone, I could hear the concern in her voice. "Lena, you okay?" she asked. "What's going on?" I took a deep breath. "I don't know, Karen. Everything is falling apart. I thought my kids would be there for me, but they're not. They've turned their backs on me. I don't even recognize them anymore." There was a pause, and I could hear her sigh on the other end of the line. "I'm so sorry, Lena. I can't even imagine how you must be feeling. But listen to me, okay? You don't need them. You don't need anyone to tell you your worth. You're strong. You've always been strong." The tears came, sudden and unbidden. I didn't want to cry, not anymore, but hearing Karen's voice brought the floodgates crashing down. I hadn't realized how much I had bottled up until now. I had spent so long pretending everything was fine, pretending I wasn't broken. But now I realized that the only way to heal was to face the truth. My children had hurt me beyond measure, and they needed to pay for it. Over the next few days, I started thinking of ways to make them understand what they had done. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that it wasn't just about making them feel guilty. No, I wasn't some martyr waiting for them to come crawling back. I wanted to take my life back, my power, my dignity. I wanted them to realize that they couldn't just walk all over me anymore. But what could I do? I had no money, no resources, no way of fighting them in the conventional sense. But then the idea hit me. A plan. A long, drawn-out revenge that would make them wish they'd never crossed me. I wasn't going to be some helpless, sick woman at their mercy. I wasn't going to just let them walk away from me, leaving me with nothing. I had raised them. I had given up everything for them, and now they would pay. The following week, I began executing my plan. I started small, calling in favors from old contacts, gathering information, digging into their lives in ways they never imagined. They had taken advantage of me, used me, and I was going to make sure they never forgot what they had done. It wasn't just about getting revenge. It was about showing them what happens when you think you can get away with treating your mother like dirt. They thought I was weak. They thought I would just lie down and accept what they did. But I wasn't going down without a fight. And when my children realized what I was about to do, it would be too late. The tables were turning, and this time I was the one in control. I had never known a pain like this. Not even when I lost my husband to that awful accident 5 years ago. The grief then had been hard, but this was a new level of anguish. It was a betrayal that cut to the very core of who I was. I spent the next few days packing the small apartment Greg had let me stay in, trying to figure out what to do next. The anger was simmering beneath the surface, ready to boil over. But it was more than just anger now. It was a kind of hollow sorrow, a realization that the people I had spent my entire life protecting, loving, and providing for had turned their backs on me at the first sign of weakness. I had raised them, given them everything, sacrificed my youth, my career, my happiness, so they could have better lives. I thought I was giving them a foundation built on love, on trust, but now I realized it was all built on a lie. How could they abandon me like this? Was I just a means to an end for them? I decided it was time to confront them. It wasn't going to be a let's talk it out moment. No, I wasn't that naive anymore. This was a confrontation they'd never forget. But first, I had to uncover the truth. And that's where the betrayal ran deeper than I could have ever imagined. I sat in the small living room, staring out the window as the sun began to set, casting a pale orange glow across the city. It was strangely peaceful, but I couldn't enjoy it. Not when I was still reeling from the way Ashley had spoken to me, the way she had rejected me without a second thought. I was shaking, not from fear, but from a deep, seething anger that had begun to consume me. How could she? My own flesh and blood. But as I sat there, something stirred inside me. I couldn't just sit back and let this happen. I was stronger than this. I would make them feel what they had done. And maybe, just maybe, I'd be able to get back a fraction of the love I had lost. I needed to do some digging. I needed to know exactly what had happened to the money I'd worked my entire life for. I wasn't a naive woman. I knew my children had always had their hands out, always asking for help with loans, with bills, with things that seemed too good to be true. But I always gave. I didn't question it. They were my kids, after all. But then it hit me. I hadn't been paying close enough attention. I was the mother they had come to rely on. I had been the ATM. And that's when I discovered it. The discovery came in the form of an email, one that I wasn't supposed to see, but one that had been forwarded to me accidentally by Ashley's husband, Ethan. I'd never been one to snoop, but something made me open it. And when I did, my heart sank into my stomach. It was a credit card statement, a large one, a debt I didn't know existed, and my name was on it. But not just any name. My signature had been forged, and huge amounts of money had been taken out in my name. I scrolled down, my hands shaking. There were multiple transactions, loans, credit lines, even some cash advances. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My daughter, the woman I had given everything to, had used my identity to secure loans, and then used them. She had been draining my accounts for months, making financial decisions without telling me, lying to me every step of the way. I stared at the screen, unable to move. How could Ashley do this? How could she betray me in this way? I always thought she was the one who had the most integrity, the one who would never hurt me. But now I knew. She wasn't the daughter I thought she was. I felt my world shattering, piece by piece. The weight of it all bore down on me, and I had to fight to hold back the tears. But no, I couldn't cry. Not yet. I couldn't afford to show weakness. I had been weak for too long, and now it was time to get strong. I had to take control of my own life again. But the worst part, the part that hurt the most, it wasn't the money. It wasn't the loans or the credit cards or even the lies. It was the fact that she had done this behind my back with no intention of telling me. She thought she could get away with it. She thought I was too weak to notice. And that was the part I wasn't going to let slide. I picked up my phone and dialed her number, my hands cold with anger. When she picked up, her voice sounded tired, almost irritated. "Mom, I told you I'd call you back later," she said, as if nothing was wrong. "I'm at work, can we talk later?" "No," I snapped. "We need to talk now, Ashley." There was a brief pause, and I could almost hear her sigh on the other end of the line. "Mom, what is this about? I don't have time for your dramatics right now." Dramatics? I could feel the fire rising in my chest. "You've been stealing from me, Ashley. You've been forging my name, taking out loans in my name, draining my accounts. And you had the nerve to sit there and tell me I'm a burden." "Mom, I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me," I screamed, cutting her off. "I have the proof right here in front of me. Don't you dare pretend like you didn't do this. You've been using me, Ashley, and I'm done being your cash cow. You've taken everything from me, and now you're going to face the consequences." For the first time, I could hear her voice falter. "Mom, please. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I just needed the money." "You needed the money. And what about me, Ashley? What about what I needed? Did that ever matter to you?" I could hear her trying to form words, but I didn't let her speak. I wasn't going to let her worm her way out of this. "I've been more than just your mother. I've been your savior, and this is how you repay me. You think I wouldn't find out? You think I wouldn't see through your lies?" There was silence on the other end. I wasn't sure if she was crying or just speechless. But I didn't care. I was done. "You're going to fix this, Ashley. You're going to pay for what you've done," I said coldly before hanging up the phone. I sat there, breathing heavily, my heart pounding in my chest. This wasn't just a phone call. This was the beginning of something bigger. Revenge wasn't just a plan anymore. It was a promise. But just when I thought I had everything under control, something happened that changed everything. Ashley didn't back down. She fought back in a way I never expected. And suddenly, the tables were turning faster than I could keep up. Stay tuned to see how far I'm willing to go to make them pay. I've never been one to give up. Not when life gets hard, not when the odds are stacked against me, and certainly not when I have a point to prove. But as I sat alone in Greg's apartment, the weight of everything I'd been through, the cancer, the betrayal, the rejection, it all felt like too much to bear. But I couldn't afford to wallow. Not now. Not when I had a plan, a purpose that burned hotter than any of the pain I was feeling. They thought they could walk all over me. They thought I'd just accept their betrayal and quietly fade away. But I wasn't going to let them win. I wasn't going to be the sick, helpless mother they'd left behind. I had something to prove, not just to them, but to myself. I was stronger than this, stronger than the cancer, stronger than the coldness my children had shown me. The days that followed were a blur. The phone calls from my kids stopped coming. They didn't want to deal with me anymore, and I could feel it. I could sense their distance, their avoidance. It wasn't just the no calls or the no help, it was the indifference. They had replaced me with their lives, their routines, and I had become nothing but a burden in their eyes, a shadow they couldn't wait to be rid of. It didn't matter that I had spent my life doing everything for them. My love, my sacrifices, my sleepless nights, all of it meant nothing. They had thrown me out like trash. But deep down, I knew I wasn't ready to let go. I still had fight in me. One evening, as I sat in the small living room Greg had offered me, I felt the familiar pang of pain in my chest. The cancer was spreading faster than I had anticipated. I wasn't just tired, I was physically drained. But there was no time to focus on the pain, no time to feel sorry for myself. I had a bigger battle ahead of me. The next step of my revenge, the next phase of the plan, the part where I didn't just sit back and let them continue to destroy me. It was time to take back what was mine. I had already spent hours going through every document I could find, sifting through old tax records and bills from the house. And there it was, the key to it all. The hidden bank accounts that Ashley had set up in my name, the loans she had taken out, the credit lines. She thought she had covered her tracks well. She thought I wouldn't find out. But she didn't know me, not the way she thought she did. I wasn't just her mother. I was smarter than she gave me credit for. I smiled to myself, the first real smile I'd had in weeks. This was it. This was how I was going to make them pay. That night, I sat up late, writing out my plan. Greg, bless his heart, had tried to keep my spirits up, but I could see the concern in his eyes. He wanted to help, but I couldn't let him. This wasn't his fight. It was mine, and I wasn't going to drag him into it. The next morning, I made the call. I hadn't spoken to Samantha in days, and I knew this conversation was going to be uncomfortable. But I needed her to understand the consequences of her actions. "Mom, what's going on?" Her voice was soft, but there was an edge of hesitation that I could hear. She knew something was coming. "I need you to listen to me, Samantha," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm done being the doormat for this family. Your sister has been using me, using my name. You've all been taking advantage of me for years, and it's time for that to stop." There was a long pause. The silence between us was deafening. I could feel her processing my words, the shock settling in. "I don't know what you mean, Mom," she said, the disbelief in her voice palpable. "Yes, you do," I snapped. "You know exactly what I'm talking about. Your sister has been running up loans in my name, and you've been covering for her. It ends today." She didn't answer immediately. Instead, I could hear the rustling of papers on the other end of the line. Was she looking for some excuse? Or was she starting to understand just how deep this went? "Samantha, don't act like you didn't know. I'm not going to sit here and pretend anymore. You think you can just hide behind your brother and sister and pretend this is all okay? Well, it's not. I'm done being your punching bag. I'm done letting you all walk all over me." The next few days felt like a waiting game. Samantha didn't call me back. Neither did Ashley. But I knew they were out there, plotting. I could sense it. They were going to try to cover their tracks. But the difference between them and me was that I knew how to play the game. Then the phone rang. I looked at the screen. Ashley's number. My heart skipped a beat. This was it. The confrontation I had been dreading. The one that would force the truth to come to light. I picked up the phone. "Ashley, we need to talk." "I don't have anything to say to you, Mom." Her voice was flat, cold. "I already told you that I can't help you. I'm busy. I don't have time for this." "You don't have time?" I laughed, but it wasn't funny. "You don't get to walk away from this. You don't get to pretend like this never happened. I know what you did, and you're going to fix it. You're going to fix it, or I swear to God, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." She hesitated for a moment, the weight of my words settling in. Then she spoke again, this time with a tremor in her voice. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, Mom. I thought I could fix it. No, you didn't think. You never thought about me, about the damage you were doing. And now you're going to make it right. One way or another, I'm going to make sure you pay for what you did." The following week, I executed the next step of my plan. I used the evidence I had gathered, the forged documents, the financial records, and I took it to an attorney. I wasn't sure what I was hoping to accomplish, perhaps just the satisfaction of knowing that my children would be held accountable for their actions. But as I sat in the lawyer's office, waiting for the consultation to begin, I realized something. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It wasn't just about making them suffer for the pain they had caused me. It was about taking back my life, taking back my dignity, and realizing that I didn't need them. I had never needed them as much as I thought I did. As the lawyer outlined the potential outcomes, I couldn't help but feel a sense of empowerment. For the first time in a long while, I felt in control. The fear, the sadness, the betrayal, it was still there. But it no longer defined me. I was more than just a victim. I was a survivor. And I wasn't done yet. But just when I thought I had them cornered, Ashley made a move I didn't see coming, a move that would change everything. She wasn't going to go down quietly, and neither was I. It had been a week since my last confrontation with Ashley, and still there had been no response. No apology, no attempt at reconciliation, just silence. But I wasn't surprised. If there was one thing I knew for certain, it was that Ashley, my firstborn, had always been a master at playing the victim. She could make anyone believe that she was the one wronged. Even when the evidence was staring her in the face, she'd turn it all around on me, making me feel like I was the one causing all the problems. But no more. I had a plan now, a plan that went far beyond just exposing Ashley for the deceitful person she had become. I was going to make sure my children, all of them, understood the gravity of what they had done. They needed to feel the weight of the betrayal they had thrown at me. They needed to know that abandoning me was not only a mistake, but a mistake they would regret for the rest of their lives. But as the days passed, it became clear that I couldn't do this alone. I needed help. The kind of help that would give me the strength to push through my illness, the kind of help that would level the playing field between me and my children. Greg had been a comfort during this time. He wasn't just an old friend from New York. He was the one person who understood me completely. We'd known each other since high school, back when I was full of hope and dreams for the future. Back then. Greg had been the quiet, dependable guy, the one who could always make me laugh. Over the years, we had lost touch, each of us moving on with our lives. But now, it felt like fate had brought us back together at the exact moment I needed him most. I spent a lot of time in his apartment, the weight of my loneliness pressing down on me. Greg was kind, and while I could see he genuinely cared, there was something else in his eyes that I couldn't ignore, a sadness, maybe a hint of regret. He knew what I was going through, but he couldn't fully understand the depth of my anger. But it wasn't just Greg that I had to rely on. I had other old contacts, people from my past who had been in my corner when things got rough. One person in particular stood out, Vincent, a former business associate of mine. Vincent wasn't a family member, but he had always admired my work ethic and was someone I could trust. He was an investor in Lowe's Angels, and his connections in the financial world ran deep. When I needed an ally, Vincent was the one I thought of. I hadn't spoken to him in years, but one evening, I decided to reach out. I picked up the phone, my fingers trembling as I dialed his number. It had been so long, and I wasn't sure what kind of reception I'd get. I had no idea how he'd feel about what I was about to ask. The phone rang twice before Vincent picked up. Lena, his voice sounded surprised, but there was something warm in it too. Is that really you? Yeah, it's me, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Listen, I know it's been a long time, but I need your help. I'm in a situation and I don't know who else to turn to. There was a brief silence on the other end. Then Vincent spoke again. Lena, you've always been the strongest person I knew. Whatever going on, I'm sure you'll figure it out. But if you need something, you know I'm here. I sighed, relieved to hear his voice. I'm not sure you can help me with this, Vincent, but I've been betrayed by my own children. I'm not looking for charity, but I need support. I need to know someone is in my corner. Vincent didn't hesitate. I'll be there. What's the plan? Over the next few days, I met with Vincent. We sat at his favorite cafe in Beverly Hills, sipping coffee while I explained everything. The betrayal, the lies, the way my children had turned their backs on me. I told him about the financial documents I had uncovered, the loans Ashley had taken out in my name. I described the coldness in my children's eyes when they turned me away. Vincent listened carefully, his expression one of both sympathy and disbelief. I'm not sure how I can help you with the emotional side of things, Lena, he said after a pause, but I can certainly help you get your affairs in order. If you want to take legal action against your children for fraud, we can start with the documents you've got. And if you want to make them feel the consequences of their actions, I can help with that too. I looked at him, uncertain. You don't have to get involved in this, Vincent. I don't want to drag you into a family mess. He smiled, and for the first time in days, I felt something stir inside me, a flicker of hope. You've been there for everyone else, Lena. You've given all of yourself to your family, and now it's your turn to take something back. If anyone deserves to make those kids realize what they've done, it's you. I swallowed hard. I just want them to understand the pain they've caused. I want them to regret abandoning me when I needed them most. Let me help you, Vincent said, his voice firm. I'll get you the leverage you need to make that happen, but you have to be ready. Once we start, there's no going back. This will get ugly. I nodded. I'm ready. I've already lost everything. What else is there to lose? The next few weeks were a blur of meetings, phone calls, and legal paperwork. I had already gathered enough evidence to take action against Ashley, but now I needed to make sure I had everything lined up. Vincent's team worked quickly, and soon enough, I had a full picture of what had been happening behind my back. The amount of money Ashley had taken out in my name was staggering. I had no idea the extent of her betrayal, but now I had the tools to make her face the consequences. And then, as I prepared for my next move, Greg came to me with something unexpected. I've been thinking, Lena, he said one night as we sat together. I think you're holding on to something from your past, something that could help you move forward. I don't know what your plan is yet, but maybe it's time to think about what you truly want for the future. I looked at him, confused. What do you mean? Maybe it's time to let go of your children. I know that sounds harsh, but look at what they've done. Maybe the best thing you can do for yourself is to move on. I shook my head. I can't. They're my kids. No matter what, I can't just turn my back on them. They're all I have left. Greg paused. But they've already turned their back on you. Lena, you can't keep waiting for people who don't care about you. You need to focus on you now. His words lingered in my mind, gnawing at me. Was it time? Could I truly walk away from them? They had hurt me deeply, but could I really just let them go? I didn't know the answer yet. But I did know one thing: I was stronger than I had been in years. And no matter what happened, I wasn't going to let anyone, not even my children, take away my dignity again. But just as I was starting to feel like I had control again, Ashley made a move I wasn't expecting, a move that would change everything. She wasn't going to go down without a fight, and this time, neither was I. The truth had hit me like a freight train, and in its wake, everything I thought I knew about my life, my family, and my future had crumbled to dust. But now, as I sat in Greg's apartment, the weight of betrayal no longer felt like a crushing burden. It felt like fuel. I was done being the passive one, the one who always forgave, always gave second chances. I wasn't going to let Ashley or Kyle, anyone, make me feel small again. It wasn't just about the money they'd stolen from me. It wasn't just about the loans or the way they'd forged my name. No, this was about something much deeper. It was about respect. It was about my dignity. They had stripped me of that, thinking I wouldn't fight back, but they didn't know who they were dealing with. It was time to take back control. It was time to make them understand what they'd done to me. They had thought they could walk away from me without consequences. They had thought I would simply wither away in the shadows, a forgotten figure in the background of their lives. But no, I would make sure they never forgot what they had done. I would make them feel the weight of their actions, and they would regret ever turning their backs on me. Greg had been by my side through all of this, though I could see the worry in his eyes. He wasn't used to seeing me like this, so determined, so cold. But that's what they'd done to me. They had turned me into someone I didn't even recognize. I had been a mother, a giver, a nurturer for so many years. But now I was a woman on a mission, and nothing would stop me. "You've been holding back, Lena," Greg said one night as we sat in the small living room, a glass of wine in hand. "I know you're angry. Hell, I'm angry for you. But what's the next step? What's your plan?" I looked at him, the fire in my eyes unmistakable. "I've been gathering the evidence. I have the loans, the credit lines, the forged documents. I've got everything I need to take them down. But I don't want to just expose them. I want them to feel the consequences of what they've done." He raised an eyebrow. "You're not just looking for revenge, are you?" I laughed bitterly. "Greg, this isn't just about getting back at them. It's about making them understand the impact of their actions. It's about showing them that I'm not the weak, sick woman they think I am. I have power, and I'm going to use it." Greg sighed and leaned back, his face serious. "You're not just going to ruin them, are you? You've got to think this through. There's no going back once you set this in motion." I nodded slowly. "I know, but they left me no choice." The next morning, I woke up with a newfound sense of clarity. I knew exactly what I had to do. The first step was to get the legal documents in order. I contacted Vincent, my old business associate, to help me with the financial side of things. He had the connections, the experience, and the resources I needed to bring everything to light. And then, there was the emotional aspect. What would it take to make my children see the consequences of their actions? I started by reaching out to a lawyer who could help me take legal action. I wanted to sue for the fraud, of course, but I also wanted to hit them where it would hurt the most, their reputations. They had taken advantage of me, manipulated me, and now I was going to make sure the world knew what they had done. I wasn't going to let them get away with it. They thought they could destroy me. Now I was going to destroy everything they had built. A few days later, I sat down with Vincent in his office in downtown Los Angeles. He was going over the documents I had gathered, his brow furrowed as he read through the details. "Lena, this is bad," he said after a moment, looking up from the papers. "What Ashley and Kyle have done is criminal, but we can turn this around. We can make them pay for what they've done." I felt a sense of vindication wash over me. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about justice. It was about showing them that they couldn't just take from me without consequences. Vincent continued, his voice steady. "I've got a few connections in the media who can help us expose this. It won't be pretty, but it will make an impact. We'll take this public, Lena. We'll make them regret ever crossing you." My heart raced as I heard the plan taking shape. This was it. This was how I would get my revenge. This was how I would make sure Ashley and Kyle understood the gravity of what they had done. "I'm ready," I said, my voice firm. "Let's do it." The next few weeks were a blur of meetings, phone calls, and legal paperwork. I had the media lined up, the lawyer ready, and the evidence in place. All I had to do now was pull the trigger. I hadn't heard from my children since our last conversation. Ashley, in particular, had been quiet. I knew she was plotting, trying to cover her tracks, but it didn't matter anymore. It was too late. But as the days passed, I couldn't help but wonder, what if they did come around? What if, at the last minute, they apologized and asked for forgiveness? I shook my head. I couldn't let that thought creep in. They didn't deserve my forgiveness. They had shown me their true colors, and there was no going back from that. The day of the big reveal came faster than I expected. I had arranged for a press conference to announce the fraud, and everything was in place. The lawyer had everything prepared, the media was ready to broadcast, and I was about to expose Ashley and Kyle for what they had done. But as I stood in front of the camera, ready to make my statement, something stopped me. For the briefest moment, I felt a pang of doubt. Was this the right thing to do? Then I remembered everything. The late nights, the lies, the manipulation. I remembered how they had abandoned me when I needed them most. They didn't deserve my hesitation. They deserved to face the consequences of their actions, and if that meant destroying their reputations in front of the world, then so be it. I took a deep breath and stepped in front of the microphone. "I'm here today," I began, my voice strong, "because I've had enough. I've spent years supporting my children, doing everything I could to make sure they had what they needed. But when I needed them the most, they turned their backs on me. They lied, they stole from me, and they thought they could get away with it. Well, today, I'm here to make sure they don't get away with it. Today, I'm exposing the truth." As the press conference went on, I could see the shock on their faces, on Ashley's face, on Kyle's. I knew they hadn't expected this. They thought they could bury me, but instead I was burying them. Just when I thought everything was going according to plan, Ashley made a move I never saw coming, a move that would change everything. She wasn't going to go down without a fight, and this time I wasn't just fighting for revenge, I was fighting for my survival. The days leading up to the press conference had felt like a whirlwind, like I was moving in slow motion while everything else around me was spinning out of control. I had always thought that revenge would feel like a sweet, satisfying victory, but standing there in front of the cameras, I realized just how much pain this was causing me. I wasn't just exposing my children's lies, I was ripping apart the last piece of my family. The family I had spent my entire life building. The family I had poured my heart and soul into. But the truth was, I had nothing left. They had taken everything from me. The media was buzzing. The lawyers were ready. I had all the evidence in place to destroy Ashley and Kyle. They had thought they could get away with using me, but I was about to make them face the consequences of their actions. I wasn't just going to win this battle, I was going to make them feel it. But as the cameras flashed and the questions came in, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Ashley hadn't reacted the way I thought she would. There had been no public outbursts, no attempts to deny the truth. She had been quiet too quiet, and that worried me more than anything. A few hours after the press conference, I sat in my apartment, trying to focus on the overwhelming flood of emotions. It felt like everything was happening too fast. The lawyer had told me that the legal ramifications were just the beginning, that the media would pick up on the story, and that the scandal would spread like wildfire. But I wasn't prepared for what came next. My phone buzzed, and I saw Ashley's number on the screen. My heart raced, my breath catching in my chest. I hadn't heard from her since the confrontation. Was this the moment when she finally broke down, begging for forgiveness? Was she going to admit everything and apologize for the hurt she caused? I hesitated before answering, unsure of what to expect. "Mom," her voice was flat, almost emotionless. "You've gone too far this time." I felt a cold shiver crawl up my spine. I'd expected anger. I'd expected desperation. But what I heard in her voice wasn't either of those things. It was calm, too calm. It was as if she had been waiting for this moment. "Ashley, don't you understand what you've done?" I asked, my voice rising. "You've used me. You've lied to me for years. And now you're trying to act like I'm the one in the wrong." "I know what I've done," she said quietly, almost too quietly. "And I don't care anymore. I've already spoken to the media. They're not going to take your side in this, Mom. I'm going to make sure of it." I was speechless for a moment, the weight of her words settling into my bones. "What are you talking about?" "You'll see," she said, hanging up the phone abruptly. That night, I sat in the dimly lit living room, the silence of the apartment pressing in around me. My mind raced. Had I gone too far? Was this really the justice I had been seeking, or had I just torn apart what little was left of my family? I couldn't stop myself from questioning my decisions. But one thing was clear. No matter how much pain I was feeling, there was no turning back now. I wasn't going to back down. But then, the next morning, the phone call came, the one that would change everything. It was the lawyer. "Lena, I need you to prepare yourself," he said, his voice tight with urgency. I just received a call from Ashley's attorney. They've filed a defamation lawsuit against you. The words felt like a slap to the face. What? How? What are they saying? They're claiming that your accusations are false, that you've damaged their reputations beyond repair. And they've got the media on their side. This is going to be bigger than you think. We need to act fast. My stomach dropped. This was the moment I had been dreading, the moment when Ashley fought back, the moment when my children truly showed me just how little they cared. I hadn't been prepared for this. I thought I had everything figured out, that I could expose them for what they had done and walk away with my dignity intact. But now I was on the defensive, fighting not just for my reputation, but for my very existence. The next few days were a blur. The legal battle was moving fast, and the media frenzy had picked up even more steam. But it wasn't just the court case I had to worry about, it was everything else. The emotional toll of it all was suffocating. I was so focused on making Ashley and Kyle pay that I wasn't sure if I had the strength to keep going. My health was deteriorating, and every day felt like a fight I wasn't sure I could win. But then, just when I thought everything was collapsing around me, something unexpected happened. I received a letter. It wasn't from Ashley or Kyle. It wasn't even from the lawyer, it was from Greg. I hadn't seen him in a few days. He had been away on business, and while I knew he was concerned about me, he had kept his distance, knowing that this battle was mine to fight. But when I opened the letter, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. I know this isn't easy, the letter read, but I want you to know that I believe in you. You're stronger than you realize, and I'm here for you. Don't let this consume you. You've already won. I sat there, stunned. It wasn't a grand gesture or a big declaration. But those words, coming from someone who had known me for so long, made me feel like I wasn't completely alone. The next few weeks were filled with sleepless nights and tense meetings. The lawsuit was heating up, but I was determined to see it through. And then, on the day that I thought would be the turning point, something else happened, something that made everything take a completely different direction. I got a call from Kyle. His voice was shaking, a rare vulnerability in his tone. "Mom, I'm sorry," he said. "Ashley's gone too far. She's making this whole thing worse. But I can't let her do this to you. I've made some mistakes and I want to make it right. Can we talk?" I didn't know if I could trust Kyle. After everything that had happened, after everything he and Ashley had put me through, could I really believe him? Or was this just another manipulation, another way to get me to back down? But when he said the words I never thought I'd hear, I knew things were about to change. But would it be for the better, or was I walking straight into another trap? I sat in the dimly lit apartment, the weight of the past few weeks pressing on me. The walls felt like they were closing in, and yet there was a strange calmness settling over me. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I might be able to breathe again. But there was still so much to figure out. The legal battle with my children, the betrayal, the lies, it was all too much. But deep down, I knew I had to see this through to the end. I had to make them understand the depth of what they had done to me. But as I sat there, staring out the window at the city lights, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. The air was thick with tension, like a storm was brewing. And just as I was beginning to make sense of everything, the phone rang, shattering the silence. I didn't have to look at the caller ID to know who it was. Kyle. For a moment, I froze. Could I really trust him? After everything he'd done, after the way he had treated me like I was nothing more than an inconvenience, could I believe anything that came out of his mouth? He had abandoned me just like Ashley. And now, here he was, calling me after weeks of radio silence. Was he really sorry, or was this just another manipulation? I took a deep breath and answered the phone. "Mom," Kyle's voice was softer than I remembered. There was a shakiness to it, an unfamiliar vulnerability that made me hesitate. "Can we talk?" I sat down, my fingers gripping the edge of the table as I tried to steady myself. "What do you want, Kyle?" "I know I've messed up," he said, his voice cracking. "I've been selfish and I've been a coward. I should have been there for you, Mom. I should have stood by you, but instead I just ran. I let Ashley drag me into this mess. And now I don't know what to do." There it was, the apology I had been waiting for, but it felt different. It felt real. The anger that had been simmering inside me for weeks began to shift, giving way to something else, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. But could I really forgive him? Could I trust him again? You think you can just waltz back into my life after everything that's happened? My voice was sharp, but even I could hear the cracks in it. Do you think I can just forget how you treated me, Kyle? How you both turned your backs on me when I needed you? I know I can't take back what I did, he replied, his voice desperate now. But I can at least try to make it right. I've been talking to Ashley and we've been fighting. I told her she had gone too far, that we couldn't keep doing this. I didn't realize it until now, but I was part of the problem. I'm sorry, Mom, I really am. I closed my eyes, taking in his words. Was this some kind of trick? Was he just saying what he thought I wanted to hear, or was this genuine? There was a part of me, some small, fragile part, that wanted to believe him. But I had been hurt so deeply, and the scars were still fresh. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said, my voice trembling with emotion. I don't know if I can forgive either of you for what you've done, but I'll listen. You have 5 minutes. There was silence on the other end of the line, a long pause like he was gathering his thoughts. Then he spoke again, his voice softer, more sincere. Mom, I'm not asking for your forgiveness right now. I just want you to know that I'm here. I've been a fool and I've hurt you. But I'm not going to just leave you alone. Not anymore. I couldn't believe it. After all this time, after all the pain, Kyle was actually reaching out. But still, a part of me couldn't help but wonder, was it too late? I don't know, Kyle, I said, feeling the weight of the words. You and Ashley did what you did, and now you expect me to just forget all of that. You think I can just pretend like nothing happened. No, Kyle replied. I don't expect you to forget, but I do want to make it right. You deserve better, Mom. You deserve a lot better than what we've given you. For a moment, I was silent, just listening to the sound of his breathing. And in that moment, something shifted inside me. Was this the redemption I had been waiting for? Was this the chance to finally heal, to let go of the bitterness and anger that had consumed me? But just as I was about to speak, the doorbell rang. I froze. Who could that be? My heart started pounding in my chest. It was too early for the lawyer's team to be here. I hadn't arranged any meetings for today. Mom, Kyle's voice cut through the silence. Are you there? I started, but before I could finish, the doorbell rang again. This time it was louder, more urgent. I'll call you back, Kyle, I said quickly, my heart racing. Stay where you are. I hung up the phone without waiting for a response, my hands trembling as I stood up and walked toward the door. When I opened it, I was met with an unexpected sight. Standing on my doorstep, looking both defeated and determined, was Ashley. The sight of her stunned me. Ashley, my firstborn, the one who had hurt me the most, was standing there, her eyes red from crying. She was dressed in a dark hoodie and jeans, her posture slumped in a way I had never seen before. It was as if the confident, strong-willed woman I had once known had disappeared, replaced by someone entirely different. Mom, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I'm sorry. I stood frozen for a moment, the rush of emotions overwhelming me. I hadn't expected this. After everything she had done, after everything she had put me through, here she was apologizing. But was it real? Or was this just another manipulation? You think an apology will fix everything? I asked, my voice a mix of disbelief and fury. You think you can just show up after everything you've done and expect me to forgive you? I know I don't deserve forgiveness, she said, her voice cracking. But I'm begging you to give me a chance to make it right. Please, I can't lose you, Mom. I've made so many mistakes and I don't know how to fix them, but I want to try. The world seemed to stand still as I looked at her. In that moment, I saw something in her eyes, a vulnerability I had never seen before. It was like all the walls she had built up over the years had crumbled, and all that was left was a daughter who was desperate to make amends. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything that had happened between us. This wasn't just about Ashley. It was about me, too. It was about forgiving not just her, but myself. I had spent so much time holding on to anger, letting it control me. But what had it done? Had it made me stronger? No. It had only isolated me further. Mom, she said again, more softly this time, her voice almost pleading. Please, let me fix this. Let me make it right. I wasn't sure if I could do it. I wasn't sure if I could forgive her, if I could let her back into my life after everything that had happened. But as I looked at her, my daughter, my flesh and blood, something inside me shifted. Was I ready to take the first step toward healing, toward letting go of the past? Or was I about to make the biggest mistake of my life?